On the surface, the most toxic character of Yani Neko may be any of these cats, but when you go further into the series, you'll find that it's actually Yani Neko's sister, Imoko, who may in fact be one of the series' most subtly toxic. Let's head back in time to episode 1, and we see that with Imoko, the cracks were already visible if you knew where to look for them. For example, Imoko won't come over to Yani Neko's place unless she cleans her room, which obviously it isn't, which funnily even frightens Yani Neko herself. She tells her sister to die. Harsh vibes, but while cold on the surface, there is more to this moment than meets the eye. This clear rejection of Yani Neko's habits doesn't last for long because she never truly meant what she said. She was simply expressing a form of repressed desires to simply tell the truth here. She wants Yani Neko to figuratively die because she wants her bad habits and addictions to die. If she does, then she can be a normal human like any other. She eventually relents after her sister gets sick and heads on over in a hazmat suit, to which Yani Neko thinks it's an alien at first. This is subtle subcontext that implies that help in any form from another person is alien to Yani Neko. In other words, it's a foreign land in which she's never experienced and has only ever dreamt of somewhere in that ADHD-addled noggin. For Imoko, she comes to help Yani Neko and rejects her friend's offer to help and keep an eye on her because it's only she who knows her best. That's the kind of response from a person who has appointed herself the only qualified handler of her sister's life because, mechanically speaking, she sees other people's help as a threat to her role as a caretaker. She doesn't get mad at that. She says this only because she truly doesn't want that joy of helping Yani Neko to go to anyone else but herself. This is the basis for our understanding of Imoko and Yani Neko's relationship going forward. Episode 2 adds a kind of layer of identity, where Imoko is somewhat ashamed of being a Beastfolk, so she suppresses her own instincts in public and with her friends. The best example of this is through a side-by-side juxtaposition. When Imoko is being complimented by her human friends on how she doesn't act at all like a Beastfolk, we see Yani Neko come barreling in chasing a poofy floofy doggy woggy. This is where she denies knowing her own sister to her face in front of other people, her best friends. Later on, when asked directly if she loves Yani Neko, she struggles to say it out loud. And let's be clear here, this isn't because it's not true. It is because saying it plainly seems to be more than her defenses can actually process. It's here that the writing of the show is saying that addiction puts just as much strain on the family as it does the person going through the battle with it. If family is tied together by threads, then certainly those threads can carry over such things as addictions, trauma, and societal constraints. That is to say, it's true, addiction puts strains on people's connections and family, but it undersells what is being built up in this and the previous moments. Episode 5 says it outright. The comparison becomes more obvious as Imoko is emotionally seeking a similar thing to actually what the Landlord is seeking with his interactions with Yani Neko. Now, I have to make this clear because sadly some people won't get this. I'm saying that in a non-sexual way. The Landlord was raised on abuse and finds Yani Neko's cruelty and her slobbiness comforting, even attractive, because it's like a map outlining onto what he learned as a child to call affection. Minus the attraction, the sexual attraction, Imoko is the exact same way. She prefers this kind of dynamic, which is to say, she almost prefers chaos and giving in to her sister's needs, because it's the only shape that intimacy has ever taken for her. But even more crucially is that despite being a goody two-shoes, Imoko has certain parts of her personality that is just as toxic as her sister's are. The difference is that she is just really good at hiding it, dressing it up. Now get this, this is a way to subtly revoke the premise it opened on as a way to subvert your expectations. Imoko was never the healthy contrast to Yani Neko's sloppy addictions. She's the second addict in the family, hooked on a different, more emotional substance, being needed. Just like how I need you to join my Discord server. The proof comes not even from Yani Neko herself, it's actually with Shu, who is the boy that she rejects after being asked out by him. He's kind, he's put together, he's highly sincere, he's adorable, and by every measure, he is a very good catch, especially for something like a high school boyfriend. But she puts him down in a bit of a bizarre twist. Now, let's contrast with Yani Neko, because when we contrast that with Yani Neko, with her literally pulling away a pack of smokes she tied a string to and digested just so she can keep her addictions, she smiles during the horrific, admittedly somewhat traumatizing exchange. Because without Imoko, Yani Neko is helpless. So in that sense, she doesn't want partnership. She wanted to be needed. Shu offers nothing to fix, and a relationship with nothing to fix doesn't register to Imoko as romantic love or really even love at all. Because love in her own lived experience is managing someone else's damage. She can't show a boy love if her perception of love is showing it through trying to fix someone. Now, here's where the show does something more interesting than just simply resting on the codependent sister who has issues trope. It ties Imoko's compulsive behaviors directly back to the same systemic oppression that is driving her own sister's addictions too. Beastfolk are legally barred from normal roles in society us humans would take completely for granted. Roles that would allow Imoko to actually build a kind of life or social status that her own competency would deserve and has clearly earned. Beastfolk are explicitly not allowed to be just some of the followings: teachers, lawyers, doctors, even scholars. These are all closed to her by political policy, not her own ability. I mean, think about it. She's smart, disciplined, capable, presentable, and has nowhere sanctioned to point any of that. So fixing Yani Neko becomes the one thing left where Imoko can seek a semblance of ambition and the control she needs to see results. The only way Imoko feels she can move forward is by fixing Yani Neko, but fixing her is impossible. That is the reframe that means everything in dark comedies such as this. Her codependency isn't just another form of inherited trauma repeating itself, but it's inherited trauma that has nowhere else to go in a world that has deliberately sealed off all other outlets. Both sisters are the downstream effects of the same kind of oppression. They've just mutated into different compulsions. One smokes, one fixes, both are never actually free. But that suppression effect on Imoko is deeper than just family. An example of that is how Imoko doesn't meow unlike every other cat. This is a small, yet constant performance of acceptable humaneness. She also dresses more modestly than her human friends, specifically to avoid the kind of attention a beastfolk would have in a society that is designed to oppress and enslave them. In the episode 5 closer, as an example, her cat hearing lets her overhear people talking about her as they gossip and fear her very nature. Just for who she is. She is hearing racism on a wavelength and with more intensity than a human could ever hope to hear. The difference is that she has no choice but to hear it. She can't opt out of her very nature as a beastfolk. In that context, everything about Imoko is a game of subtraction. Do not stand out. Do not be seen as too animal, but also not too human. Do not claim the boy who wants you. Do not say the word love even when it's true. Do not let anyone help your sister. She builds and constructs, rather, forges an entire personality out of making herself smaller and more controllable in a world where she is told politically, legally, socially, and romantically in her own head that smaller and more controllable is the safest thing to be. But it's not totally bleak for Imoko either. The closing beat in episode 5 is her friends quietly bringing disposable chopsticks so she doesn't have to wash them away from everyone. This small, unglamorous gesture isn't about fixing her. It's just about making her circumstances a little bit easier. more tolerable, and more acceptable. It's notable because it's not an example of codependency either. Everyone in this scene didn't need anything from Imoko in return. It's an example of the one relationship in her life that, so far mind you, hasn't and doesn't ask her to manage someone else's chaos to be worthy of loving. The show doesn't resolve to say that whether Imoko will ever be able to be on the receiving end of that kind of care the way she actually gives it, but it does plan a possibility. One where it's deliberately right next to the moment it fully confirms how broken her caretaking instinct actually is. This is the kind of juxtaposition that a real, undemanding friendship might be the most honest thing the show has done with her yet. It's saying that true love has no strings attached. It's not emotional or romantic even. It is an action which is taken by her friends to give her chopsticks so she isn't alone in a bathroom. That's true love. This is also the same mechanic that makes Imoko a mirror of Yani Neko and not just the healthy sister. Yani Neko copes with an unlivable world by numbing herself with nicotine, drugs, alcohol, and the landlord's cabbage. Imoko is coping by making herself indispensable to someone else's trauma. And both coping mechanisms irrefutably trace back to the same source. A family that taught them dysfunction is what love looks like inside of a society that has closed off every way to seek something better. The show's cruelest and most honest joke about Imoko isn't really a punchline at all. It's that the good sister was never actually fine. She was just able to dress it up in cute clothes. And the villain all along was a racist society that was hell-bent on making sure she stayed that way. Static and invisible. And if you want to see how Yani Neko exposed the dark secrets of society itself, check out this video here on the screen. Make it a great day or not, the choice is yours.